All right, coaches, welcome back to this week's three method series. This week, we're talking about guarding the basketball. Guarding the basketball is a critical component of our defense. We want to sort of set the standards of how we want it guarded, where we want that basketball shaded, and what types of techniques we want to emphasize as coaches. Now, in this week's video, we're going to look at three different methods. We've got a one-on-one guard your yard drill, a good thing that we can use for warm-ups. We've got a five-spot defense, a one-on-one half-court drill where we're working on defending from the corners, wings, and point. And then also one-on-one sideline drill where we can work on more full-court style defending, work on teaching kids about angles, and work on fighting back for position when we're beaten. Lastly, I think we've got to touch a little bit on the options we have as coaches to establish our shading on the defensive end. So we'll talk about different options that we can get to in that portion. Now, as far as our teaching methods go, each week we like to kind of talk about a few things that we're going to really emphasize no matter what the drill is that we're teaching. And I think there are four that we're really going to place some emphasis on when we're guarding the basketball. One of them, of course, I think the most important is maintaining arm's length distance. We've got to make sure we're maintaining good guarding position. I put the photo to our left here to give us an emphasis. We want to be able to reach out and touch our defender at all times. That way they can't get easy shots right in front of our face, and they're not going to have easy vision of passes potentially here as we're guarding our man here. So maintain arm's length distance. I like that as a baseline for teaching. The idea of open hips. Like, yes, we may be shading a player to a certain spot on the floor, but shading or at least anticipating that action is different than opening our hips. If we are opening our hips, we are essentially giving them a gateway into the paint, and that is most certainly not what we want on the defensive end. Teaching them anticipation and playing angles is so important. The idea that we're going to be able to stop cold every single drive is silly. We've got to be able to teach them to anticipate where that ball is going, play the angle, get there, and stop that basketball. Even our least physical players, we've got to find a way to teach them to keep that basketball in front. And lastly is the idea of a hand check here. I mean, let's face it. Hand checks are a critical component to guarding the basketball. Certainly you're playing with fire, getting called on ball fouls with the use of a hand check. But we all know that using your hands to stop the momentum of a player is something that good defenses are always using. Right? We've got to teach our players, the idea of sort of like a closed fist hand check here, right? The hot stove referencing, meaning we can't keep our hand there. We've got to check it and pull back. But using the hand checks as a means to keep guys in front, I think, is just a critical component. Every good defense that you face is not just using their feet, but is using their hands as well. And we've got to find a way to mix that into our teaching. All right, let's get into our first concept here. We have is a one-on-one guard your yard method. If you guys follow me out on Twitter, I'm gonna post a thread that's got a link to this. To a great video that Coach on Twitter I posted, and I really want to pair that with what I diagrammed up here. We're going to basically give a designated area of the floor to a defender. We're going to ask the offensive player always face the rim, but basically can go forwards, backwards, left, right, work their way around the designated area, and it's up to our defender to guard them one-on-one. We're working on maintaining arm's length distance. We're working on shutting off angles towards the rim. Right? We're working on stepping forward, working our angle to sprint backwards to cut them off. This is not going to be a one-on-one drill with a finish at the rim. We're not really getting into the shooting element. This is like a warm-up. Let's test our ability to keep guys in front of us. Let's work on getting intensity to like the beginning of a defensive session here. And obviously, once we get about 30 seconds of a possession, let's get them out. Let's get two new people in there, and let's work their defensive possession there as well. All right, now our second method here that we're going to introduce is our 5-spot defense. 5-spot defense is a good one-on-one drill, and we're going to work this from 5 different areas of the floor. We're going to work both the corners, we're going to work both the wings, and we're going to work the point here. All right. Now, certainly as coaches, we can teach what our stance looks like in these positions, where we want players thinking about forcing the offensive player. Um, you know, we obviously, as they play this out, we can kind of chime in with how to contest shots, how to guard drives, how to finish box outs, right? Those types of elements of one-on-one. Now, from just an organization standpoint, we're going to pair players up. I like the idea of getting this going on 2 hoops. So we're going to have, more guys getting more reps here. Players are going to play it out one-on-one. Once they finish, they get off the court. Next 2 jump on, they play. After each person gets a possession on offense and on defense, we're going to then move from the corner to the wing. Play it out from the wing to the point. Play it out again, and we're going to progress to the other wing in the corner and then finish the drill here. Obviously, I think we want to add some competitive component to this. Let's get scores for let's keep score. We'll get a winner at the end here, and make this a little bit competitive. Get guys really into that element of the defense here, and make our job the teaching of the technique while they're playing it out one-on-one. Now, lastly, I got a one-on-one sideline drill. Just like I said for the first concept here, I'm going to post a link to a quick little video that I took a couple years ago of us testing this out in practice here. Now, typically, this is an extension of one of my ball handling concepts here. More or less, I'm going to get somewhere around like 4 to 5 groups here. We're going to get players paired up. We're going to give them, approximately about like a quarter of the court here. I kind of have this drawn up for 5 groups. Usually I use 4, and they're going to get from like half court to the free throw line. The other group will get from like the free throw line down to the side, the baseline here. Now, theoretically, they're going to work one-on-one. We're not playing this out like a zigzag drill here, right? I mean, we are checking this up, and we're playing one-on-one from one sideline to the other. Now, typically, offensively, what I'm trying to harp on guys about is creating space, attacking a guy hard, pulling back your dribble, creating distance between the defender. From the defensive end, we can really start thinking about our shading, forcing guys to their weak hand, playing their angle so that when they do attack, we're cutting off that angle and perhaps, forcing them to turn, right? Or perhaps at least squaring them back up when they do make their move here. Obviously, we're going to play this down, play it back the other way, and then get a new group of guys in there. We get this going maybe 3 times, get 3 good reps of this. I like this as kind of like a build-up. Maybe if we're doing like a full court session, hey, let's get some one-on-one sideline going, then let's get into our full court defense, and we can kind of work it into that way. All right, now I think there's a little bit of talk I wanted to have here about forcing here, right? From a philosophical standpoint, we probably want to have a preference about where we want that ball to go. Now, I said no open hips here, so we're not just opening and letting guys drive in a certain direction, but we're really placing our emphasis and our weight on our lead foot, like against the way that we want them to go. For instance, I would say most people fall into this sideline, baseline force here, right? We're not going to let guys go middle. We're going to always force them towards that sideline, baseline corner, use those out of bounds markers as extra helpers and make the middle, right, the place where guys cannot go. Certainly, I've sat in plenty of clinics that had pack line oriented coaches really force the middle, right? They're not allowing any baseline here, knowing that they're going to have more help from the pack defenders in the middle of the court, use that as an advantage and not allow any type of baseline drive whatsoever. And then, of course, I think there's sort of a trendy movement towards like a lock left system. Now in this system, if a guy's on the left-hand wing, we're going to be forcing him to that left, and they may go middle. If that man is on this other wing and we're forcing left, they may go baseline here. It doesn't necessarily set the standard of no middle, no baseline cleanly, but it does set the preferred method of forcing guys to their weak hand. And it's a really, to me, it's a really interesting strategy. I mean, I would almost always assume this position as a defender on the wing. And then certainly you got to at the point, and then on the wings and the corners, you've got to let your system take over here. But I don't think there's anything that's wrong with any of them. But one thing we've got to do is be clear about what our preference is so that our help defenders know cleanly when the ball is on one wing or corner that the drive most likely is coming from one direction or another, and they can adjust accordingly here. All right, that's all we got for this week here. If you guys are not subscribed to my website, I would highly recommend you go to CoachLynchBasketball.com. Check it out. We've got tons of posts. Every week I turn these videos into longer blog posts where I get to add a little bit more commentary and detail to the drill setup. If you guys could do me a favor and hit the subscribe button below the video so more coaches can see and get access to these to this 3-method series. And next week, we're going to be getting into defending actions, looking at things like ball screen middle, ball screen baseline, off-ball screening. We've got to kind of dig into some of those scheme-oriented things that we're going to see on the defensive end. That's all I got for this week. We'll check you guys out next week.